I looked up a definition of covenant. It says it's a formal and binding agreement or promise between two or more parties to do something, often found in law, finance, religion, etc. And I would add the word in sports. But go ahead, Tim, with your experience and what you can offer us, because I'm going to edit this and help us kickstart the mission statement exercise, and the coaches will be doing the sessions online to get better at delivering it.
Yeah, I think ultimately what we're talking about is ownership of your team identity. And so obviously you need to have the players involved in that conversation. And we as coaches obviously value certain things. We value a lot of things. And if we wrote a covenant or if Tom wrote his, he's taken it down to four, but he's probably got 30 things that he would love them to do. I think it's really important to have a short list of, you know, identifications, values that the players have that we can hold them accountable to, they can hold each other accountable to, but the process itself allows them to have ownership of it. So when they pick a word like, I don't know, work ethic, right? When you get them in January and they're lollygagging around the ice, you can go back to it and say, hey, remember when we wrote that down? We all agreed. So I think it's accountability and ownership. I've done it for decades with provincial teams, with national teams, all the way down to U11 teams. I haven't yet done it with my teams this year. We just started regular season games. Actually, one of my teams hasn't even started yet. We start this weekend. So I think it's important to give your team a bit of time to establish their identity and what they value just organically before we spoon feed them the mission statement or whatever. I think they have to really identify with who they are. And I will say in the 15 years of doing it, I've never had any team pick the same five characteristics. So in 15 years, and that's probably 30 teams because you should coach two teams a year. I've never had the same five pop up every single time. So I'll just show you an example of one. I think I can share my screen, maybe. Oh, I don't know. Maybe Wally has to give me
Yep, I'm
permission to share.
following. I'm allowed now.
Okay, let's try it again.
Anybody can share. Okay.
Okay, can you see this one, Wally?
Yes, I can.
Okay, so this would have been for a junior team. I don't know what season. It probably says at the top. So these were the five. This team was a little artsy. They wanted it to all match up in a word. And so how we arrived at this, I think, is the important part of today. So this took, I would say, an hour and a half plus tax to get to as a group. So this would have been 17 players between the ages of probably 16 and 19 who did this as a group. And these are the five values. I like to have five values they came up with, and they jigged them up so that it could spell heart on the left side, just to make it look cute. And so these were the five that they picked, and we'll talk about the process I used to get here. And then when it was picked, we printed it up all nicely, and they all autographed it. And because we had a dedicated dressing room for the junior team, we were able to put it up on the wall on the back of the door. So when they were sitting in the room and the door was closed, this would always be in front of all of them. And so, that's kind of the end product of what we did. But it took us quite a bit of time to get to these five words. And in my experience, and Tom would probably be able to echo this, you usually agree on three right out of the gate, and four and five are a fight. Everyone's fighting for their word
Oh,
to decide. And the fifth word, like they all have to go home with homework.
yeah, just
And then, it becomes a battle to who gets the fifth word. So there's a little bit of competition in it too, which is cool. So the way we do it, I'll stop sharing here. The way we do it, and I gave Wally a copy of the PDF of the how I share it out to teams. But basically, we introduce the exercise, and we say these are the values or the characteristics we really want to embody as a team. And the five that we pick, we have to 100% buy into, and we want to be the best of all our opponents in these five things. So if you're going to pick hard work, as one of the five. And I have had teams that don't pick hard work, and all the coaches listening are like, how do they not pick hard work as one of the five? I've had teams that don't, and they still worked hard, right? But when I say to them, you've got to be the best at it, you have teams that maybe are just super skilled that aren't, blue collar lunch pail type teams, and they go, yeah, we're going to work hard, but are we really going to outwork everybody? Like, it's okay to say that. And I've done this with double A teams all the way down, right? And sometimes the lower level teams, them wanting to be the hardest working of every team in the league, that's not part of their identity. That doesn't mean they're not going to work hard, right? But it's sort of that idea that it's going to be your most important values that are going to pop to the top. Trust would be another one that every coach would be like, of course that's going to be there. And most of my teams come up with something that, you know, works around trust or is trust. But again, there are values that us as coaches might absolutely want in the top five that they don't pick, and we need to be okay with that. Now, obviously, coaches are kind of steering this conversation along the way, but I would say I've never told a team, "Oh, we got to have heart," because I always think we should have heart. Like it's all about their choices. So we introduce the exercise, and then we just get them to pick words and values that they think are important. So we split them into usually three groups, sometimes four groups of players. And I usually do that strategically because I do everything strategically. So, you've got a returning player, you've got a new player, you've got a kid who doesn't talk very much, you've got goalies, you've got that sandpaper kid who never really agrees with you, but you kind of love because she never really agrees with you. And you split them up strategically so that you get a lot of conversation, right? You don't want the four kids who never talk in the same group, and you don't want the four kids who talk too much in the same group. And so we remind them that we value everyone's input. We write everything down as a value in the first round. So some teams come up with eight. The really talkative ones that I would have probably been in the group come up with 26. It's far too many, but they just throw a bunch of ideas down on paper. And then we get them to start to think about what their definition of that is. So if you're going to write hard work, can you make a sentence? Can you define it in a sentence? Like if you're going to say hard work is on there, what does that actually mean? And we then ask them to put that little sentence next to every word. Then we offer up more words. So I have a list of 20 that I included, and Wally's got that list. But we just offer up 20 words because sometimes with the younger groups or the less experienced competitive teams, it can be a hard exercise. So sometimes I share that if I think it's not rolling as well as I would like. And, they pick a word or they're not sure what a word means. And then we just put a little definition against it so that they can go, oh, I actually really like that word. Oh, maybe we do want to put that in our top five. So let's say they now have a laundry list. Most groups will come up with 10. And then we tell them you've got to cut it down to five. So now within those three or four small groups, they've got to cull down to their favorite five. And that in and of itself can take 15 minutes because some are more opinionated than the others. And sometimes they don't get it to five, they get it to six, and that's okay. But they'd have to bring it down to their top five. And then each group shares its top five. So now I'm writing them on a huge sticky note or a whiteboard, and we're putting them down. And if there's a word that has multiple teams that say it, if it's trust, then we put little check marks next to it to indicate that, all the groups said trust. So now we have every single word of their top picks on the board. And again, usually there's two or three that everyone has picked. So if there's two that everybody picked or most teams picked, let's say trust and hard work are usually in there, but they might not be. Let's say those are picked, then we just circle them. We say, does everyone agree those are in the top five? Great. So now we're just picking the next three. So now you're looking at, okay, what else? What other words or characteristics do we have multiples of? Or maybe what do we need a better clarification of what that means? Like sometimes they say fun. Great. What does that actually mean? Does that mean we're like playing small area games at every practice? That means we're wearing costumes in at Halloween. Does that mean it's we're telling funny jokes? I don't know, but I like fun is very general, right? And you might think fun is, we're not really like no one's screaming and yelling at me because this is fun. And it's just going to be kind of softer. You might actually have players who think that. That's okay, right? But you might need a little bit more of their definition of fun as opposed to the dictionary definition of fun. You know, typically in girls' teams, there's always something like fun, friends, love, togetherness, something, right? What does that mean? Because there's going to be moments when it's not fun and we're not together and someone's mad at someone. And, so as a coach, you have to kind of steer it, not to get the words that you want, but that understand that you're making this in a vacuum where everything's unicorns and rainbows. They're like, these are the five things. And when we're winning 8-0, we will be all five things. Well, of course you will. When you're losing 3-1 against a team who has no business beating you, are you still those five things? So I think it's important to reinforce that these are characteristics that we are in good times and bad times, on and off the ice, right? So if we're going to be trusting, we're not just trusting Sally to pass me the puck when we're open. We're trusting Sally's, going to be a great teammate and not be a jerk in the dressing room, right? So I think it's important to continually steer that. So usually you get three relatively quickly in this process.
Kim, can I
Yeah.
interrupt because I'm thinking about what we have to do here proceeding and what you're saying. And the word fun. There are a number of parents that look at that word as, well, that's not elite hockey. They really think it's, oh, community hockey. They're just here to have fun. They're not serious. And I think the kids understand enjoyment of the game and the player, the enjoyment, the joy of playing is fun. And sometimes parents look at that word fun and think, oh, this isn't serious. And so this word, that one word, although a lot of parents use that word in their feedback to me about what they want to accomplish, they just express it in a way that I think fits into the elite mindset of enjoying your experience. So I don't know if you can elaborate on that and then proceed, but I just wanted to throw that in. Thank you.
No problem. I mean, I don't know that I've shared these five characteristics every year. Like, this is for the team. And when I'm coaching junior, the parents, like, it's this is about the team. I don't necessarily need to share it back to the parents. With a younger group, I might choose to. Uh, I think that's kind of the coach's call, to be honest with you. You've already got a mission statement. Like, this is about the people in the room, the coaches and the trainers and the staff, and it doesn't need to go out to everyone. I don't know that I would even necessarily want that to. But yeah, the fun part, the kids are going to pick fun or some version of fun almost every single time. And I think that's important for everyone in the room to remember because the staff are a part of this process too, right? And I think that's an important signpost for us when things get rough. But yeah, I wouldn't say to a parent that I'm recruiting, well, we always have these five characteristics and these are the five and fun's always on there. Like, I don't know what the kids are going to pick. I've had years they don't pick fun. I've had very serious groups who have no interest in friendship or fun. And we've had teams that have done really well in that way and teams have done very badly who pick those things, but it is what it is. So when we get to the final couple, it becomes quite a fight. And maybe as a coach, you try to be a bit of a peacemaker or, Google words that maybe are combinations of the words they've picked or they're fighting about. In my experience, they're usually fighting about two things that are very different. And they start to get on each other's side. So we start to take votes of like who wants this word and who wants this word. And I do blind votes. Everyone closes their eyes and puts their hand up. If they vote for, I don't know, whatever the word is, hustle. And, so we can try to do it in some sort of democratic way. And we will occasion get like an 8-on-8 tie on a particular word, right? And then if it's tied on the fifth word, I tell them to go home and do some work and try to figure it out or fight amongst yourselves because I'm not interested in spending 3 hours in the room figuring out what the fifth word is going to be. And if they come back and they haven't picked it, then as a coach, I just decide, okay, we're going to do this one. Or I have done some homework to figure out what the fifth one is. But I love the process of it. I love the outcome. because you get that little sign and everyone buys in and we sort it out. But I love the team building aspect of this, right? And if everything from the way you mix the groups up. So I'm not putting the two girls who carpool every day and are besties in the same group. No way, no how. Right? Like you can just you manufacture it the way that you get what you want out of it. I love the conversation. I love overhearing some of the ridiculous words they come up with. Their spelling is always a challenge. So sometimes I don't can't even read the word that they came up with. I love what they sometimes how they define things is really illuminating. So you'll have a player that says hard work, but her definition of it is something as a coach or as a teammate you might have ever thought of in that way. So it can be like I've had players cry doing this, but players get really emotional in a good way about this. I've very rarely had any negative experiences in doing it. Sometimes you have two girls who really get into it about, a particular word or something. And usually as coaches, we have to diffuse those situations anyways. But there are opportunities for leadership, right? In
Yeah.
those four little groups, somebody's going to take the lead. Someone's going to be the one who has to tell the coach the four words. I'm going to call on somebody strategically to ask them to define what a word means. And it's usually going to be one of the really quiet kids, and so you can pull a lot of things out of it in terms of getting to know your group, building the group, um, and getting them to make a final decision, which like I'm just thinking about doing this with my daughter's team. And my 9-year-old is one of the least decisive people in the universe. So this one's gonna be real hard for her. She's gonna have 86 words she wants on the 5-word covenant. So I think it's a great way to bring the group together and to have that visual that they are constantly referring back to. So on teams that don't have a dedicated dressing room, I usually have, I just put it on a nice piece of paper and one of those plastic sheets, that we use to put our practice plans up. I just carry it on the board or just have it with us. So it's always there as something to refer back to. But it's great to have that physical representation you can put up on the wall in any rink you're in to kind of show who we are, because that's really what this is. It's who we are, or maybe it's aspirational. We've often had a fifth word that's aspirational, so we're not that yet. We're not the hardest working yet, but we want to get there. If it's something to do with talent, if it's, so there is something to be said about having a fifth word that you want to be, but you are not yet, and that you can continuously shoot for, as part of your team identity. So, like I said, it's one of those core things I've done every year with older groups. I would say I haven't done it with U9s because I think that might be a little bit early. But I will do it with my U11 group this year. Just, again, once they have a little bit of more sense of their teammates